Today's Coaching Coordinator podcast is a quick cast taken from Lauren's First and Goal Clinic with Oregon offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead. He starts by sharing how they break down the red zone and think about game planning in those areas. He goes into and defines RPO and how they think about RPO. He talks about simplicity and their approach to it, and then answers a question on the evolution of defense. I think there's some great takeaways from this one. The entire talk is available on CoachTube, and if you haven't seen this one, it's definitely one worth getting. It's a great resource, I think, as you look at your different RPOs that you can use in the red zone. He provides plenty of examples of his team using those, especially as they start to get closer to the goal line and the different things that they use to attack those there. The link for that will be in the show notes, as well as a code on saving on that clinic right now. So here's Coach Moorhead on red zone and RPO.
Next thing I want to talk about is what we define as our red zone areas. All right, so from the -1 to the 10-yard line is backed up for us. From the 11 to the plus 36 is what we call freewheel. Okay, then once we get into what we call the fringe, that's the plus 35 to the plus 26. And to me, this is really the last area on the field where you can take a shot into the end zone. A lot of people call this the logo area. We call it the fringe. And in terms of what we're doing and how teams are playing us, we've consistently seen in that fringe area people defending you for the most part like they do up the field. The fringe area game plan from the 35 to the 26 in most instances mirrors what you're going to see on first, second, and third down in the freewheel zone. So that is a place where we like to take shots, where we like to throw the ball and push it down the field, and pretty much from the defense see what you see in the regular freewheel area. The next area down is what we call the red zone, which is from the plus 25 to the plus 16-yard line. And from a defensive philosophical standpoint, this is where you start to see a little bit more pressure and maybe a little bit more one high, a little bit more non-conventional looks than you see in the fringe area or up the field, with the thought process that they're trying to close up the middle, one, or two, they're trying to create some pressures to knock you out of field goal range, particularly at the higher end of the red zone. Okay. The next place that you see is what we call the tight red zone, and that's going to be from the plus 15 to the plus 6-yard line. And for teams that kind of have a quote-unquote goal line or tight red zone defense, this is usually the point of demarcation, and maybe it gets a little bit tighter to the 10 than it is the 15, where if a team's going to play what we call, 4 bracket, where they're going to play the 7 across and rush 4, and usually pair that with a 0 blitz, this is the point in time where that's usually going to show up. We're going to see 4 across or 7 across, kind of bracket defense, and then pairing that with 0 pressures, because it's a pretty good disguise. And then some people, once again, depending on the team, they're going to stay in their base game plan. All right, goal line is from the 5 to the 1. And to me, that's always been offensive personnel contingent. You get into 21, 12s, and we're at UConn 23s. You're going to see a matching of personnel and probably a little bit more heavier fronts. If you continue to stay in 11s, 10s, and 20s, you're going to see a base defense, but a more condensed version of it, where some of those 2 high zones turn into what I call 0 locks, and you get the constriction of space in order to get 8 people around the box against a set where you only have 6 blockers, talking about with an attached tight end, and then adding the 7th with a running back. So that's part of our game planning process. We go through that for a first and second down exercise, and then third down. And then we have, like I said, a fringe game plan, a red zone game plan, a tight road zone game plan, and a goal line game plan, all contingent upon how the defense has presented itself in our breakdown. Working now into the RPOs. All right. So I felt, I don't know that we were necessarily the first people ever to do it, but I think we were on the ground floor of RPOs, going all the way back to some of the stuff we did at Akron, then getting into UConn, and then certainly where it really took off at Fordham and Penn State and Mississippi State. Now that we're doing now, people always ask me, well, what is an RPO? So kind of sat down and talked about the 5 key bullet points, which I feel are integral in describing what an RPO is. Number one, I think the primary role of an RPO is that you are going to create conflict with one or more defensive players. All right. So the primary point and definition of RPO to me is we want to create conflict with one or more defensive players. Number two, once you've decided who you're going to create the conflict on, you want to force the defender to make a quick decision. Okay. And in forcing the defender to make a quick decision, you're creating either a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 mentality. Okay. And with the end man on the line of scrimmage, you want to force him to make a quick decision between tackling the quote dive or playing the quarterback. All right. And if you're making an RPO read off of a second or third level defender, you want to force him to make a quick decision on either his run fit, number one, or his man or zone coverage responsibility. All right. So number one, creating conflict with one or more defensive players. Number two, forcing a defender to make a quick decision and creating either a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 mentality, allowing the end man on the line of scrimmage, or forcing, I should say, to play either the dive or the quarterback, or forcing the second or third level defender to choose between his run fit, number one, or his man or zone coverage responsibility. The third facet, philosophically, is we want to have built-in free access, edge pressure, or man-to-man answers. All right. And I think that's critical so you don't get yourself caught in a bad play, that you want to have those three things that are available and they're tools in the quarterback's toolbox. Okay. Number four, we want to have the ability to change a run call to a drop back protection versus a loaded box or pressure. And I think that's probably something a little bit unique that we do that has been part of our RPO thing and that has grown over the years. And lastly, the quarterback's decision-making process and kind of what he goes through every time that we call an RPO. All right. Number one, is there pre-snap access? Okay. Yes or no? Number two, I need to evaluate the issues. And the issues are a loaded box or edge pressure. And then I'm going to make the necessary adjustments for there if either the case, either with the protection or with my decision. The next thing he wants to do once he's evaluated, once he's made the decision if there's pre-snap access, if there are any issues, then he's going to identify his post-snap read or his post-snap reads. And once those have been identified, when he gets in the mesh, this is the question I always have him ask himself. Is the defender being read in position to tackle the ball carrier at or near the line of scrimmage? Okay. If the answer is no, it's very simple. He hands the ball off. If the answer is yes, it's a three-pronged scenario based on how many people we're reading. If the answer is yes, then it's a pull and run. If it's a triple option, the answer is pull and run or pull and throw based on what the secondary key does. Or if we're blocking a 6-for-6, then it's a pull and a throw. Okay. So once again, create conflict with one or more defensive players. Two, force defender to make a quick decision with a 2-on-1 or 3-on-2 mentality, tackling the dive or the quarterback, or playing their run fit, or there's man or zone coverage responsibility. Evaluate the built-in free access, create built-in free access, edge pressure, and man answers. Have the ability to change the run call to a drop back protection versus a loaded box or pressure. And then the quarterback's decision-making process. Pre-snap access, number one. Evaluate issues, number two. Identify the post-snap read, number three. And then go through your decision on whether the ball should be handed off or pulled. Occam's razor theory. To me, we have a unique and uncanny ability as offensive coaches and maybe coaches in general to overcomplicate a simple game. And to me, it may look like we're doing a ton on offense, but I want the presentation of it to be the complexity rather than the application of it and the conceptual understanding by the players. So to me, Occam's razor theory is simple. It says it's the principle that of two explanations that account for all of the facts, the simpler one is more likely to be correct. And entities are not to be multiplied beyond necessity. So to me, I think simpler is better. I think a confused player plays slow. I think a player who knows what he's doing plays with confidence. He plays with physicality and he plays with precision. So I truly believe that everything that we do, it's a three. Is it sound? Can we teach it? And can the players execute it? And that's the one thing with RPOs that I think people are searching for, that mythical play that answers everything. And I don't think that there is a perfect play. And, what I've always thought we were pretty good at and continue to be good at is maintaining our aggressive mentality while minimizing risk. You cannot eliminate risk. You can't have a play drawn up and have it answer every single thing that defenses can do, because they can do a ton. There's going to be a play that you have dialed up that eliminates 95% of the risk on the field in an aggressive manner. And they could bring the one thing that screws the play up. And you know what? Sometimes you have to tip your cap to them and move on to the next play. But to me, that's keep it simple, maintain your aggressive nature, right? And then minimize risk. And I think those are the things that we've done with our offense and why we find a bunch of success over the years. What are some recent changes in defensive philosophies that have created changes in your RPO game? It's kind of ever evolving, and we need to do things to kind of, so to me, it's kind of the same things. People have gotten into playing more man to take the air out of the zone, to keep the backer out of conflict. And when people do that, then we get into our RSO game, which is run screen option, where it's more 2-on-1s as opposed to second or third level defender. Edge pressure has always been a thing there, but we pair our RPOs with man-to-man beaters or access. So those are the two things I would say are the biggest defensive philosophies that have changed relative to the advancement of the RPO game. Is seeing more man-to-man, seeing more disguise and late bluffs, and seeing more open edge pressures.
There's some really good takeaways in today's quick cast. And again, that entire clinic is available on CoachTube. I know we're in season, but I think it provides a great library as you're going through and looking for different ideas on how you might attack a defense. He uses a ton of formations. He's in different areas of the field, especially in that red zone area, and gives you some answers with some different types of runs and passes attached to them. Again, you can get that at CoachTube. The code for that is CCPMoorhead. I'll put that link in the show notes as well as the code. And again, anything you purchase from Lawrence First and Goal supports their cause. Follow all we're doing this season on coachandcoordinator.com and follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.